Complete our series on the 10 vows of a healthy marriage, something we started 3 weeks ago, and this is something that I adapted from Bayless Conley. He called it the 10 commandments of a marriage. But then I don't like the word commandments because it makes it sound like as if it's an order, it's like you have to do it. Where the 10 vows is more about something you want to do. It's a promise that we're making, instead of something that we're commanded to do and like force upon us. So I would prefer to call it the 10 vows of a healthy marriage. And the premise is very simple. We're saying that a good marriage just doesn't happen naturally. We have to put a lot of efforts, a lot of energy, a lot of money or patience or time, faithfulness, you name it. If we want a healthy marriage, we have to work on it. It just doesn't happen by itself. If you look at Hollywood, if that is your model of a healthy marriage, then you're going to be very sorry very soon, because Hollywood is not a good picture of what a healthy marriage looks like, because it's just all on the screen. It's all made up and it's not real. And so we know that healthy marriage is a lot of effort. And it has to be, again, as I mentioned here, that God is the blueprint. God is the one who made marriage. It was God's idea about marriage. And if you think about it, God had a marriage before he had a church. Okay, when he created Adam and Eve, he had marriage in his mind already. That's why he brought the man and woman together. And so if we want to have a healthy marriage, we need to always go back to his words. The words of God that we want to focus upon is that, of course, the principles, because we know that healthy marriage is far beyond just built on passion. Okay? Maybe before you got married, when you're dating, you have a lot of passion about your potential mate. And maybe during marriage or just your honeymoon. But those of you who've been married a long time, you know that a lot of time that passion is no longer there. And if you think that you have to renew your passion by getting a new spouse, then please don't do that, okay? Because, like I said, a healthy marriage is not built upon passion. A healthy marriage is built upon passion, yes, a part of it, but more importantly, it is built on godly principles, timeless principle, which is based on the Word of God. So we have learned, church, that when we look in the Bible, in the Old Testament, God often address Israel like his bride. When we get into the New Testament, the church is the bride of Christ. So, and so in the book of Exodus, in Exodus 19 that we started in the beginning 3 weeks ago, we saw how God, after he delivered the people of Israel out of bondage, he brought, they were camping in this particular mountain, and God called Moses to himself. And God told Moses what he is supposed to tell the people of Israel. And if you look in Exodus 19, there's some of the languages there. It's very romantic, or I should say very loving words. And so God was telling the people of Israel, okay, look, in Exodus 20, he gave the 10 commandments. And so many times we look at these 10 commandments like rules, like, oh, we have to do this, this is laws, and it's kind of very boring, and we think of a ritual and religion. But really, when God gave these 10 commandments, God was saying to us like this, look, if we want to have a good relationship, if we want to have a lasting, healthy relationship between you and me, then here's the way. If you want to have a healthy, lasting relationship between each other, then here's the second part, because the first part more connect with God, and the second part is our relationship with one another. So that was what God was saying to us. And so instead of looking at these 10 commandments like rules and regulations as we often do, we use this series to speak to us how this can really apply in our marriage. And so like a quick review here. So the first one, it says, do not worship any other God. You shall have no other God before me. Basically, it's saying that there should be only one person in our life. When it comes to human relationship here on earth, then our spouse has to be number one. Okay, we're not talking about us and God. Okay, God, of course, is number one. But human relationship, that our spouse has to be number one. There should be no competition. Okay, whether you're married only 1 year or 30 plus years, our husband, our wife, the one we've been married to, should always be number one in our life. Not our in-laws, not even our children, not our boss. It's our spouse. Has to be number one. Number two, we talked about that the second commandment says that you shall not make yourself a graven image. It's talking about substitute. We should not have a substitute in our life. Spiritually, of course, we should not have, graven image is like something that substitutes the real God. So we can be married, but yet we have substitute. And we talked about it, that how men sometimes, quite often, a common substitute is our job, our career, our business can become a substitute. Instead of putting our energy, our passion into our spouse, we put it into our job and our careers. Another big substitute for a man is, of course, is pornography that we talked about. And I just drew up some statistic here, statistic on pornography. And this is very horrifying because when you look at it, it says every second, $3,000 is being spent on pornography here in the U.S. Okay? Every second, there are 20,000 plus internet users are viewing pornography. Okay? Every 39 minutes, a new pornographic video is being created in the United States. And worldwide, okay, in 2006, pornography revenues ballooned to $97 billion, and 14% of that, $13.33 billion, is in the U.S. So we can see from this statistic, church, that pornography is a very big substitute, especially for among men. Instead of putting our energy and, again, our passion into our spouse, we do it into a substitute. And for women, of course, like we talked about, that sometimes our children can become a substitute. And in the beginning, it may seem okay, until our children leaves the house and gets married and, go to college. And then for the man, he retires. And suddenly, you don't know each other because you have not built that relationship. And then things happen. And so, number 3, we talked about the fact that we need to speak kindly to each other. Do not use the Lord's name in vain. It means that if our relationship is to work, we need to encourage one another. We need to speak words that are kind and gentle and that was uplifting to each other. And then number 4, we talk about remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. God is saying that if we want to have our relationship is going to work, we need our special time together. And God made Israel to spend one day a week to be dedicated just for Him. And so this applies in our marriage as well. We need our special time together. We need some time from time to time, an extravagant, time with our spouse where we can get away and just build and be romantic and build that relationship. And the point here is that maybe it's not one day a week, but the point is we need to schedule it because we live in a very busy time. If we don't schedule a special time with our spouse, we will go throughout the week after week, so busy with so many things that we don't have this Sabbath in a sense. We don't have that special time with our spouse. And so now we finished the first 4, and in the next the section with man, we talk more about characters that we want to look for. If we are married already, we want these characters in our life. We want to strive for it at least. We want to build that character in our life. If you're not married yet, you want to be looking for these things in your potential spouse. So because again, this will build healthy marriages. So number 5, we talked about the fact that honor your father and your mother. It's talking about that, we said that how a man treats his mother and how a woman treats her dad can often reflect how he or she will treat the husband and the wife in the future. But the point here is that if, as children, we need to honor our parents, we need to be grateful to them. And if we cannot respect and be grateful to our parents who took care, who loved us so much, then how can we be grateful and respect and honor our spouse who, in comparison, did not take care of us as much as our parents did? So again, we want to have that gratefulness in our marriage. We want to have that spirit of gratefulness and respect and honoring. And sometimes, if you're not married yet, you need to look at this in your potential, the guy or girl you're dating, to take a look at how they look at it. And vow number 6, you shall not murder. That was a simple one, right? We talk about it's not good to kill your spouse because it's very hard to have a healthy marriage when you kill your husband or your wife. Okay, but in Matthew 5, Jesus talked about being angry. So here the murder is not a physical murder, but it's about your temperament. Some of us, perhaps, we have a short fuse. And so if we have problem in this area where we have a very explosive emotion, explosive temperament, it's very unhealthy because it will destroy marriages. And we see the domestic violence in homes where people get very angry, very emotional, and explode, and we say things that is unhealthy in a marriage. And so that's why, again, if you're dating somebody, you want to be careful. You want to be looking at these things. If your boyfriend is driving and suddenly he gets cut off by somebody and he explodes right away just because being cut off, you want to these are signs. Be careful, again, at those things. And number 7, this is the last one we talked about 2 weeks ago, was a simple one, of course, very clear. You shall not commit adultery. And because we saw how adultery is a very destructive behavior that destroys healthy marriages, because the trust, the bond is broken when we have another person that comes into our life. So let's take a look now at the last three as we conclude together before we make our vows to one another. Number 8, it says,